Despite market conditions, throughout the past 3 months, we've seen 90% of our DeFi legacy members exceed their yearly income targets. And this wasn't through hopping in on meme coins or getting into high risk positions or even having to manage their portfolios every day. It's just from having a simple strategy in place and benefiting from the overall market circumstances. Throughout the past 3 months, as you probably know, Bitcoin went from about 60 grand and then it hit the big price target of $100,000. Now we're sitting at about 95K for Bitcoin and we're hoping it rises again. Now, while most DeFi investors probably fell short to impermanent loss, which means it would have been better for them to just hold on to their assets instead of investing them into liquidity pools, our DeFi legacy members are not only beating divergence loss throughout this time period, they're also exceeding their yearly income targets, which means that if they were expected to make over 90% in the past year, they're making more than 90% in the past year. Remember, we're not financial advisors. We're not telling you what you should or shouldn't do with your money. First of all, a lot of DeFi investors have very scattered portfolios. They hunt on Orca, Uniswap, and other exchanges to try to find solid positions, and maybe they have 20 pools that they're entered. But what we do is advise to help people get into just a couple good positions that can generate passive income. Instead of trying to get in 10 plus positions, sometimes even more than 20, we like to advise people to just get into 1, 2, 3, or maybe even 4 pools. Because when you're only getting into 4 pools, you can really do better due diligence on the platforms, the networks, the tokens, etc. And this is regarding the DeFi portfolio. When we're talking about a HODL portfolio, it's totally fine to hold on to as many assets as you want because those don't really require your day-to-day due diligence and day-to-day monitoring the assets. You're already in the coins, you're just going to let them sit for however long you want them to sit. But in DeFi, you need to be monitoring your positions. You need to check, are they going at a range? Should I select a new range? Is this range comfortable for me? And being in a ton of positions can be very confusing. So regarding the DeFi Formula blueprint, first of all, we have positions. So you have to know what type of positions you want to even have in your portfolio in the first place. Do you want to have crypto stable positions? Do you want to have stable positions? Or do you want to have crypto positions? Then you have to determine the allocations to each of them. Say you have $50,000. Do I want to have $10,000 in a stable to stable position, $25,000 in a stable to crypto position, etc. And you have to consider, are you going to be dollar cost averaging into your portfolio? All of this you have to consider. The reason I'm saying this is because most investors don't have a capital allocation plan. They're not planned out of where they want to put a percentage of, for example, that 100K they're going to invest. They might just throw 20K into their first pool and then make some mistakes and be down 20%. Instead, if they went in with this 100K and they put in, let's say 5K to start out, and say they do make some mistakes and go down 15%, well, the overall 15% of 5K is much less than 20% of 20K. So it's all about having a strategy in place when you're allocating your capital. We also need to go ahead and determine the risk tolerance right here, because a lot of investors like to say, oh, I'm a mid-risk investor. But the reality is, if you have a lot of capital to invest, like a lot of our members in our community, well, you're a high risk investor in general. But in cryptocurrency, you might be a mid-risk investor. From here, with your risk tolerance and capital allocation, you really want to figure out how much you'd be putting into stuff like ETH to USDC or ETH to Bitcoin. And then you also want to think about, that's 1. 2, how much would I put into stuff like Sol to Render? And assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Sol are blue chip assets, and then other assets that are in like the top 100 are middle risk assets, I'd like to say. And then of course, like past the top 100 assets, we have more higher risk assets. So let's go by that rule of thumb, then you can go ahead and map out those returns. And of course, when doing all of this and assessing your risk tolerance, you can use our software Metrics Finance to simulate your potential returns. Now, enough of that phase. Let's get into the actual fun, the construct phase. We can think of this as like building a house. Up here was the blueprint, and once we have the blueprint done, we can start constructing the house, which is right here. So when constructing the house, the first thing we're going to do is first find positions. I'm going to type it so hopefully you can see it easier. And then 2, we're going to go ahead and find ranges for those positions, right? And 3, we're going to go ahead and simulate our returns. And already we have plenty of videos covering how to find positions, how to find ranges, and how to simulate those positions. And next we have the deploy phase, which is where we would be deploying our capital into the positions. And from these 10 positions we simulated, maybe we only want to get into about 5 of them or 4 of them after doing our due diligence. So say there's only 4 of them we want to get into. We'd enter into 4 and see it's kind of like a funnel. We went from 20 positions after the ranges, 15, simulated 10, and now we're down to 4 positions that we're actively deployed into. And all of this is exactly how in both DeFi Excel and DeFi Legacy, we help you build out your portfolio to achieve your goals. And these goals are whether it's quitting your 9-to-5 job, generating passive income to just have more income to spend, or being able to put your cryptocurrency assets to work. In the beginning, you would use Metrics Finance to find your positions, but later on, you would break off from Metrics Finance and use tools like DeFi Llama or CoinGecko. Then you can also find your ranges on the simulate page of Metrics Finance, which makes it easy. Then you can simulate your positions using CoinGecko to map out potential gains or losses on assets, and then simulating that through the simulate page on Metrics Finance. And then when it comes to deploying capital, Metrics Finance, the software, tells you how much of each asset you need to deploy, and then you can dive into the actual decentralized exchanges themselves, such as Orca or Uniswap, to deploy your capital and have it go live. Rather than using automation tools that charge you high fees, you want to use the decentralized exchanges themselves. And then it comes to the next phase, which is managing your positions. And with the Metrics Finance software, you can track your profit, your divergence loss, whatever it may be. And then when it comes to rebalancing, we recommend you use the exchanges themselves and don't use any extra tools that charge fees. But ultimately, it's more of a question of how much is your time worth. If it takes you 30 minutes to rebalance a position and you're paying $5 in fees, then is your time worth it to just have it automated? It's up to you. Whereas if you get good at it and it only takes you 5 minutes to rebalance a position, then maybe it's not worth paying the fee. Then of course there's tracking. This is all automated through Metrics Finance, but we also have a manual tracking software, and we highly recommend that if it's not on Metrics Finance, you create yourself a manual spreadsheet that maps out everything about your positions. And by that we mean deployments, claims, withdrawals, etc. And then of course we have optimize, which is making sure your range isn't too broad or isn't too tight. All depends on your strategy. And this is our same strategy where one of our members made over $2,000 from their 17K investment, and where Mitch here, look at this. He made over $6,000 in earnings. His profit and loss was $20,000, his profit. And look, if he were to just hold, he would have had way less money than if he were to be in this liquidity pool, because he got over $6,000 in fees. So with the Metrics Finance tracking, you can see the versus holding on for dear life. And it's the same strategy Jason used to make over $1,500 in 7 days off of his 16K investment. So that's really solid. Again, this is all thanks to Metrics Finance, where you get the community, you get the education, and you also get access to the Metrics Finance software. By being invested in liquidity pools, there's massive income potential. You could be earning 50 to 100% APR on your cryptocurrency assets, but the thing is, 80% of DeFi investors quit because they don't have the right structure, right instructions, right strategy to follow. And in DeFi Excel, we have a systemized plan to get you from A, beginner or new DeFi investor, to Z, confident DeFi investor. We teach you the big 4, DeFi profit blueprint, simplified setup, and portfolio deployment, and you get access to a free trial of the Metrics Finance software. And of course, it's the pro version of the software, so you're not missing out on any features. Make sure to click the link down below to lock in your spot at $47 a month. If you learned anything from today's video, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell to turn on post notifications, and I really want to hear your thoughts down below. Anyways, have a great one.